Hello, I'm Dr. Brandt Gibson, and I'm so excited to be back with you today. What I'd like to talk to you today is goals. Now, from a very young age, I've always been taught to set goals. I've always been taught to have something that I'm striving for and trying to do. But a lot of times we're taught the wrong way to set goals. And because of that, we actually limit ourselves. Instead of reaching higher levels, instead of doing things that we really want to do, we are limited. So let's take a step back. I want to remind you about your personal GPS. I love this way of looking at it because it actually helps us accomplish the impossible. It helps us be able to do things that we didn't think were possible. First, setting goals. That's what we're going to talk about today. Second is purpose, and we'll be talking about that here in some further videos. And then third is story, basically setting the story or changing your story or setting the story that you need so you actually reach the goals that you want to reach or reach the life that you want to reach. So let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit about goals. One of the things that I want to make sure you understand is the whole purpose of all these teachings that I'm going to be doing in this level of instruction is to help you reach your goals, live your dream, and enjoy an extraordinary life. You are extraordinary. You were born to be extraordinary, and you have the right to live an extraordinary life. And so I want to help you do that through taking that first step today and saying, okay, let's help you set some goals. So let's consider this. Let's look at this kind of as a map here. You're starting down here. And then as you start down here, you're trying to get up to there. And so the process is, how do we make sure that we can actually follow that path and actually reach the goals that we want to, that we can actually do the impossible or something that sometimes is considered impossible. Let me tell you a story. When I was very, very young, I was limited in my ability to read. I didn't learn how to read as quickly as a lot of my fellow students did. I also had a stutter, and I couldn't say my S's and my R's. And so I didn't think I was as smart as everybody else. And so there were goals that I had. I wanted to be a doctor, but it looked like it was impossible. The truth is I am a doctor. The truth is I was able to do that. The truth is because of some of the things that I'm going to help you implement, I was able to do the impossible, and I want you to do the same. So take a second, and we're going to actually help you believe in miracles. So the first thing you've got to do before you can actually really, really set goals is you've got to believe. You've got to say, okay, I know that this is something that I can accomplish, and then you can set your mind to it. So to help you do that, we're going to go through a couple different questions here. Number one, where are you right now? If you remember, if we go back to that first map, the bottom of that hill, that's where you're starting. Where are you right now? If you don't know where you're at, there's no way to get to where you're going. So where are you right now? Where do you want to go? So where are you? Where you're trying to get to? And then the next two questions are kind of the keys to helping you determine what goals you should set. Why do you want it? This why is probably one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. If you don't know why, you're not going to have the drive to make it happen. And it needs to be a good why. It needs to be a pretty strong why. And when you talk about purpose, which we will talk about in some, like I said, in some future videos, that will help you really understand your why and go deep enough to the why that you can actually get the drive and be able to accomplish it. And number four is, what capabilities do you need to get there? So as you set your goal, you say, okay, what things do I need to do? Are there other mini goals that I should be setting in as part of this to help me get to that ultimate goal, that ultimate level I want to get to? So all of us have heard, or I'm assuming all of us have heard about SMART goals. The problem with the usual way of doing SMART goals is a lot of times, again, we set a limit. We set a limitation. And so I'm going to explain this a little bit differently. And this is how I recommend that you set your goals to help you so that you don't have limitations, so you can actually do things that you didn't think you could do. Number one is specific. It is very, very important that you have a precise, specific, clear goal. If it's vague, how do you know if you're actually moving towards it? If it's vague, how do you know if you can reach it? So it needs to be focused and narrow. It needs to be identify an exact outcome. What is to be accomplished that makes it so it's easier to track and determine if it works? And that brings us to number two, measurable. It needs to be a measurable goal. You need to be able to have exact outcomes that you're looking for, exact steps that you can take to say, okay, this is done. Trackable, quantifiable, because you want to identify progress. One of a man that I really, really respected, Thomas S. Monson, actually used to teach about this. And he would actually say that anything that is tracked will improve. Anything that you self-report, so if you're tracking it yourself and you're reporting it to other people, it seems to accelerate. So you can actually reach your goals easier if you're tracking them. So it needs to be measurable. Number 3 is actionable. If you've done SMART goals in the past, you may say, well, wait a second. A is usually obtainable. I don't like that term, because then what you're doing is you're saying, I need to know how I can get there before I set that goal. That's wrong. It just needs to be actionable. It needs to be something that you can work on, that's something that you can move forward on, something that you can actually influence the results. Don't set a goal that's completely dependent on everybody else unless you're involved in that process. If you're not involved, it's not a goal you should be setting. Now, if you're involved in the process and you can work with other people, that's different, and that can still be actionable because you can help control the results. It also needs to be under your locus of control. Do you understand what locus of control is? It basically means it's something that you can have direct input on, something that you can actually control the outcome of. Your goal can't be for someone else to change or someone else to do something, because that's not something that you can control. They have that control. So locus of control, and it needs to be something that you can actually influence the results on. You need to be involved in the process. So actionable. So again, specific, measurable, actionable. The next one is relevant. This is another piece that, depending on who teaches you the SMART goals, may give you a limitation. A lot of times they'll say, oh, you need to be realistic. No, realistic, again, puts a limit on you, because you're saying, okay, I've got to see how I can get there. How is not important. What is more important this time? Because what's going to happen if you set these goals correctly, you will do things, like I said, that you once thought were impossible, because you're moving forward and you're taking small steps, and these small steps become bigger steps until you reach that goal. So relevant, it needs to be aligned with your values, and it needs to be built on your major transformative purpose. And the major transformative portion, again, is one of these videos we're going to talk about. When we talk about purpose, we're going to teach you how to make sure that the goals that you're setting and the things that you're working towards really go towards that purpose. And the last piece of this puzzle is time bound. If you don't have a deadline, then you can continue to work on it forever. If you say, okay, I want to write my book. I want to get my book done. Now, if there's not a deadline for that, a year from now, you'll still be working on your book. 2 years from now, you'll still be working on your book. 6 years from now, you may still be working on your book, because you don't have a deadline. Put a deadline on it, put a timeline on it, and be specific on the time frame. When does it need to be done? Why does it need to be done at that time, and so forth? And you want to give it a strong enough deadline that you're going to stick to it and you're going to make it happen. And so the question, when exactly do you want to reach this goal? So set a goal, make sure it's specific, measurable, that you can actually track it and determine if you're making results or not. Make sure it's actionable, something that you can actually work on, something you have a locus of control over. Make sure it's relevant to your values and your ultimate purpose that you're trying to accomplish, and make sure it's time bound so that you can reach that goal. I promise you, if you set your goals this way, if you really, really focus and say, I know where I want to go, I know what I'm trying to do, I've got my ultimate purpose, I'm going to actually move in that direction, you can do the impossible. You can make things happen that you never thought you could. Hello, I'm Dr. Brandt Gibson, and this is Concordant Day 19, and I invite you to sit down with your goals and say, are they truly SMART goals? Not the typical SMART goals, but SMART goals in this way: specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound. I promise you, if you do that this way, you can do things you never thought possible. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'm so excited for you to take the next step to reach your goals, live your dream, and enjoy the extraordinary life you deserve to live. Have a great rest of your day.